In 6.2, we're going to look at the Calvin cycle, which is the second part of photosynthesis. We've looked at the light reactions, which is the beginning of photosynthesis that uses the water and the light. And now we look at in the Calvin cycle where the carbon dioxide is used. So first we need to look at where is the Calvin cycle going to take place. So the light reactions take place in the thylakoid membrane, where the Calvin cycle is going to take place in this outer fluid, the stroma. So the first thing that has to be done is what is called carbon fixation. So the CO2 molecule is made up of carbon and two oxygens, and the carbon has to be removed so that it can be used to make other organic compounds. So in the first step, we're going to start with that carbon from carbon dioxide, and it's going to meet up with a 5-carbon molecule. And this is called RUBP. So that single carbon combines with the 5-carbon molecule to make a 6-carbon molecule, and then it splits into 2 3-carbon molecules, which are called PGA. In the next step, we use the NADPH and the ATP that was produced in the light reactions. So those match up with the PGA molecules. They give off a phosphate and the hydrogen, and then those are attached to those PGA molecules. And then after the ATP becomes ADP, it goes back to be used in the light reactions. And the same thing with the NADPH. When it loses its hydrogen and becomes NADP, it also goes back to the light reactions. In the next step, these G3P molecules that we took and made from the PGA and attached a phosphate onto the end, one is going to leave and be used to make the carbohydrates that are a product of photosynthesis. The other is going to be used for making more of that RUBP, that 5-carbon molecule. So the 3, one of them goes off to make carbohydrates or sugars, and the other one gets reorganized with the help of ATP to then become that RUBP molecule with 5 and start the cycle all over again. So here's a look at the whole thing all together. So if we kind of walk through it again, the carbon from the carbon dioxide is broken off, attaches to the 5-carbon RUBP, makes a 6-carbon molecule, splits in 2. Now we have PGAs. Those attach to a phosphate from ATP and a hydrogen from NADPH. One of those goes off to make carbohydrates. The rest then are recombined with the use of ATP back into the 5-carbon molecule to start the process over again. So an important step that we did talk about a little bit, but these ATPs and NADPH that come from the light reaction are reused back and forth between light reaction and Calvin cycle, light reaction and Calvin cycle, and keep fueling all of these processes over and over again. What happens if a plant can't efficiently use the Calvin cycle? There have to be alternative pathways. Maybe if a plant is in a really hot location, really dry, like the desert, they need to be able to do the Calvin cycle type of process in a little bit more efficient way so they don't use as much energy or have to work as hard. So first of all, one thing that helps control that we looked at in one of our labs, the stomata, those pores that open and close, they're going to help regulate that. And so try to maximize the carbon dioxide that we can get, help control the amount of water and oxygen that may be leaving so that the plant can function as efficiently as possible. One of these types of pathways would be called the C4 pathway. So instead of the carbon dioxide turning it into a 6-carbon molecule, it only turns into a 4-carbon molecule. And so by doing that, it's a little bit more efficient. And also, the stomata stays closed during the hot part of the day, so some of that extra water isn't evaporated off. Likewise, the CAM pathways are very similar, more efficient, and these plants are going to keep their stomata open at night, closed during the day to maximize the use of their carbon dioxide, water, oxygen. So what are some things that affect photosynthesis? First of all, how much light the plant's going to get. So the more light, the better photosynthesis is going to work. Carbon dioxide levels, again, more carbon dioxide, the better photosynthesis will work. And then lastly, temperature. To a certain point, an increase in temperature is good. But if we get too hot, then the plant's going to dry out. And so only to a certain point does an increase in temperature benefit a plant. So now looking at this last slide, this is going to tie all of photosynthesis together. And so this is really kind of what you need to know about this whole chapter. First of all, at the top, you see the photosynthesis reaction. The reactants being carbon dioxide, water, and light. And then the products, sugar and oxygen. We can see in the chloroplast here, we've got our thylakoids, where the light reactions are going to occur. And then we've got the stroma, where the Calvin cycle will occur. You can see that the ATP and ADP, NADPH, NAD+, going back and forth to fuel the whole process. Carbon dioxide, used in the Calvin cycle. Water, used in the light reactions. Light, obviously, in the light reactions. Where does the sugar get produced? Sugar gets produced in the Calvin cycle. And then oxygen is produced when the water breaks down with the help of the light reactions. So if I were to ask a question, where are all the reactants used? Where are all the products made? You could tell me carbon dioxide used in the Calvin cycle, water used in the light reactions, light used in the light reactions, sugar produced in the Calvin cycle, and oxygen produced with the breakdown of water. So this is the whole overall process of photosynthesis.